एक्टिव।
वैसे तो आपका है
एक से 45 साल मेरा सेक्शन नहीं आप लोग काफी एक्सपेक्ट
रीड आउट कौन से रीड आउट करनी चाहिए
नहीं मैं तो उसके बाद साइड में थी
और रेफरेंस आप इंक्लूड किया तो
वो तो सामने
लगे
नहीं
आपका जो आई कांटेक्ट है बिल्कुल
कैमरा पे रखना है या सामने
हमेशा नहीं
कैमरा पे रखना है।
मुझे किसी में
नहीं
कैमरा चेंज होता रहेगा
सर सामने यही है स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड
ये वाला
फर्स्ट स्क्रीन लेफ्ट
ये कैमरा लेंस में देख के बात करना ऊपर नीचे नहीं ये
ठीक है।
पीडीएफ इसमें खुलेगा
पीडीएफ है इसमें खुला हो पीडीएफ नहीं खुला पीडीएफ में
पीपीटी में लगाया था ये ब्लॉक है खुलेगा मेरे लैपटॉप अटैच हो जाएगा इसमें
हाँ हो जाएगा
उसके अंदर
और वो ले आओ लैपटॉप दे दो ठीक है फायर वायर क्या लगे
लैपटॉप का रजिस्टर
इसको शट डाउन करें
अभी भी ऐसा
शट डाउन करते
मॉनिटर दूसरा चीज है
एक में रहेगा तो बंद भी होता है नहीं बंद नहीं होता है इसको कहाँ पे रखेंगे ऐसे वो तो ये रखा जाएगा इसमें या उस तरफ है वो कन्वीनियंट इससे टेबल निकलेगी ना सेट हो जाएगी इसको पूरी इसको वायर नहीं रुक जाएगा शट डाउन हो रहा नहीं हो रहा
इसमें एक सीडी भी वो निकाला कहाँ रखा किसी में वो सुबह उनका था आईपी वालों का था कल था ये
अच्छा मेरे पास तो अपनी पेन ड्राइव है तो मेरा पीसी पे चलेगा
इसको रोज कर लिया तो इसलिए आ जाना है ऊपर कभी से निकालना मॉनिटर में से निकालिए मॉनिटर में से क्यों इसमें आ जाते हैं सीधी मॉनिटर में से निकाल दे केबल इसमें मॉनिटर में निकल वो दूर रख देना हवाई का करना पीडीएफ लोड कर दो इसमें जिसको आता है कहाँ पे
इसमें यहाँ पे इमेज कितनी है इसमें है इसको रखना चाहिए
आउटपुट दे रहा हूँ 9 नंबर में देखा जरा इसको ऑन तो कर कौन डाले उसकी जरूरत ही नहीं है
इसको लगा
भी वो बात है, इसमें रन नहीं हुआ।
नहीं वो कंप्यूटर से तो इसका कोई रिलेशन नहीं रहा।
जो आपका वहाँ चला गया पीपीटी
क्या?
लगाया। चलिए आप बगैर उससे कर लेंगे, फ्लाइट नहीं होता।
ये लगाए रहते कि नहीं?
ऑन तो करो ना।
हाँ ये तो इसको ऑन करना है
लैपटॉप उसको जोड़ोगे ना तब तो आएगा, लैपटॉप कितने चलेगा?
जोड़ तो ये मॉनिटर वाला केबल इसमें आ गया है, उसको डेली नहीं कराते हैं, क्यों उसको ऑन कर क्या हुआ है इसमें?
इसमें आई है पावर ही नहीं आ, एक मिनट आ गया लो अब चलेगा।
ऐसे ही चलाते हैं वो।
पाल कन्वर्टर में केबल है, इसमें इससे जो बाहर निकली केबल उसमें जोड़ दो।
नहीं इसका जो आउटपुट है सीधा पाल कन्वर्टर।
हाँ तो वही तो केबल
पावर कन्वर्टर कहाँ चला गया? अरे तो ये ले दो ना, ये वाला केबल निकाल के इसमें दे दो ना सीधा। सीपीयू
वही है, तो इसका आउटपुट निकला है वो तो इसमें जोड़ोगे ना। ये काम चाहिए केबल,
ये आपने पाल कन्वर्टर में जाएगी।
हाँ तो आना चाहिए।
वहाँ पर है
हाँ सीधे पाल कन्वर्टर में जाएगी।
आउटपुट आ रहे हैं।
चेक करने के लिए
आया नहीं
नहीं आया कुछ, अगर नहीं आता तो मुझे ऐसे डिस्कस नहीं
आ गया कुछ।
सर ये लूज है ना यहाँ का, ये आया।
लैपटॉप के ले रहे हैं हम कल बैंक कदा कभी आ रहा कभी ये सीपीयू जो होगा
वो सीपीयू से क्या मतलब है?
सीपीयू तो कट हो गया ना तेरा, डायरेक्ट पाल कन्वर्टर में जाएगा ना आउटपुट
उधर वो आपने क्या
हाँ ये
लूज है कहीं पे।
वीडियो केबल तो कहीं लगी हुई है
ना वीडियो केबल तो यहीं से है। ये वैसे ही कर लें सर।
छोड़ दो ये
ठीक नहीं हो रहा है।
ये आता ही नहीं इसको, ये पहले अपना बाद में ये अपना कर लेंगे।
टाइम ज्यादा हो सकता है।
डायरेक्ट होना ही
छोड़ दो
तो
इसे डिस्कस ही करना है ना, अंदर बैठ जाओ, इसकी जरूरत ही नहीं है ना।
हाँ
आप इधर ही हाँ
नहीं वो उधर
इधर सेंटर में ये होगा, उधर ये अटेंडेंट को भेजो यार।
Good afternoon, learners. I am Dr. Sunil Gupta, Faculty, School of Management Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University. So, I welcome you all in this teleconferencing session with my distinguished colleague, Anurag Agnihotri. In fact, he is a faculty member, College of Vocational Studies, University of Delhi. So, dear learner, today the topic for this teleconferencing session is inventory management, which is the part of MCO7, which is meant for the MCOM students. So dear learners, you might be knowing that in this era of cutthroat competition, no organization can survive until or unless the policy of that organization is effective. So policy regarding inventory management plays a vital role to compete with the existing competitors in the market. Because sometimes what happens that in case there may be a sudden increase in the demand of the product, maybe on account of the customers, maybe on account of some sort of technical points. So when there is increase in demand, then it is very much obligatory, it is very much necessary, it is very much essential for the organization to meet out the demand of the customer. And we cannot survive until or unless we are able to meet the demand of the customer in the market. Therefore, it is in order to meet out the demand of the customer in the market, effective management of inventory is essential for every organization. So therefore, in order to discuss these issues in detail, I have Mr. Anurag Agnihotri as a resource person who will be discussing all the issues in detail. So with these words, I hand over the session to my distinguished colleague, Mr. Anurag Agnihotri.
Thank you, Sunil sir. Welcome, dear learners. In today's session, I will try to cover up what is the inventory management, why to hold the inventory, which means what is the need of holding inventory, the cost of holding inventory, objective of holding inventory, and its different approaches. So first, what is inventory? Inventory is to hold the raw material, work in progress, and the finished goods in the proper quantity, so that if it is more than the required limit, there may be extra amount of capital is involved, so the company may incur extra cost over those inventory. So excess inventory is also not good for the company, and if it is reduced to a level, then also it is not good, because then stock will be out from your company and you will not be able to meet the needs of production. So your production process will suffer. So that is why proper inventory management is required to be done. According to the CIMA London, inventory management is basically, it is a systematic control system of all the stock records with yourself. It starts from you are placing an order, you are receiving by way of purchase, then you are storing it, then you are issuing it. So this whole process should be maintained in such a manner so that the cost effectiveness should be there. There should not be any problem as far as the cost is concerned. There should not be a stock out at any moment. Now the question arises, why we should hold at all the inventory? How much inventory to hold? So there are three motives behind holding the inventory. First, transaction motive, means we should hold that much inventory in our stock which we can run our production easily, and the production level should be maintained at ease level. There should not be shortage of the stock, there should not be shortage of work in progress, raw material, there should not be dead stock, also should not be in short supply. Everything should be available to the workers production department at right time. I will be discussing in this session also how the introduction of the supply chain management today has changed the concept of inventory management. Now the second motive is precautionary motive. Some businessmen, some companies try to hold the stock for the purpose of precaution, so that if there is sudden rise in the demand of the goods, sudden rise in the production level, because there are some seasonal industries are there. You might have knowing the example of sugar industry. So if the production increase due to certain reasons, then you must have the sufficient inventory in your stock. If you do not have sufficient inventory available, your production will suffer, your production cost will be increased, your labor will be sitting idle. So there need to be hold enough inventory into account. Then there are certain aggressive managers who wants to take the advantage of price fluctuation in the market. So they want to hold the inventory for speculative reasons. They say that if there is any price variation in the market, then they can sell it out the extra inventory with themselves, and they can earn the profit for the company, and by this they can reduce their cost also, and they can increase the profit of the company.
So here, Mr. Anurag, I would like to interrupt you in between. See, in fact, as you have outrightly discussed, that inventory management should be managed very much effective. That shows that the inventory should be maintained in such a manner that it should not be very much high and it should not be very much low, because sometimes what happens that in case if you are keeping the level of the inventory very much high, so in that case, see, sometimes what happens that the amount of inventory which is lying with us is very much high, and the demand of our product may be very much low in the market. And on the other hand, if the amount of inventory which we are keeping in our godown, that is very much high, so it means that unnecessarily we are blocking our funds in the idle activities, and when the funds are blocked in the unproductive activities, that will ultimately lead towards the ineffective management of the organization. So it may be the cost of capital, because once your funds are blocked in the unproductive exercise, it means you are losing by way of interest also. Otherwise the same amount could have been invested anywhere, and that amount could have fetched a very good rate of return. So now you are losing that return also. On the other hand, when you are keeping your amount of inventory very much low, so that shows that sometimes what happens, because you are very much aggressive, you know that if we keep the amount of inventory very much low, and in that case it means you are very much concerned about utilizing the funds very much effectively.
Yes,
but sometimes what happens, as you have outrightly discussed, that there are so many things which are absolutely uncertain, which are absolutely beyond the control of the human being. So when all of a sudden, when the demand of the product increases in the market, and on the other hand when we are keeping the amount of inventory very much low, then definitely it will hamper the organizations like anything. So it will ultimately affect the organizational functions in the adverse manner, and we won't be in a position to meet out the demand of the customer only because of keeping the inventory level very much low. Therefore it is the amount of the inventory should be maintained in such a manner, neither it should be very much low nor it should be very much high. It should be managed effectively.
It should be at equal level, so that the needs can be. Dr. Sunil, I would like to say one more thing here. Earlier it was there that inventory management was a part of the production management only, but today it has been established as a separate field. The supply chain management is today a strategic tool for the success in the market. Many companies in India has shown it that with their supply chain management system, they have established their lead in the market. They are today market leaders. In auto industry, we have the example of Maruti and Bajaj, who has managed their supply chain in such a way that their cost reduction is around 30%. You might be having an example of Mumbai's Dabbawala. They are the biggest example of supply chain management today. So that is why you should have a proper level of inventory available in your stock always. Now I will proceed on some of the cost of holding inventory. When you hold the inventory, first the material cost you are incurring, means the purchasing cost of that much inventory, raw material. Then ordering cost, because every time you place an order you have to put some cost on that, because there will be transportation cost, there will be cost related to purchasing order, preparation of order, receiving it, etc. So this comes to the ordering cost. Then when you store it in your storage, this is known as carrying cost, means the cost of a store, warehouse where you are keeping the raw materials, then the employees who are involved in that, their salary, then heat, electricity, etc. is also involved in the carrying cost only. Then there is one more cost which is known as opportunity cost. Means if you are having the excess amount of inventory available, then that money can be utilized somewhere else, which you have pointed out. So you are losing the opportunity cost also. So these three costs basically involve in the holding the inventory. First, cost of the material which you pay it to the seller. Then ordering cost, transportation cost, etc. in that it is included. And third, you have the carrying cost.
So here, Anurag, I would like to take some more thing. You know that sometimes what happens, that as you have outrightly discussed, that there are 2 or 3 types of costs which are basically involved while managing the inventories effectively. Like holding cost is one which you have discussed. So I think holding cost is also known as carrying cost. We can call it carrying cost. And then another cost which you have discussed is ordering cost. See, sometimes what happens, that when the policy of the management is not very much clear, so in that case sometimes what happens, or when we are not in a position to forecast the amount of the inventory effectively, the amount of the quantities which we need for the production purpose effectively, in that case what happens, that say for example if we forecast that okay, for a particular financial year if we require 2000 quantity of the material for meeting out the demand of the customer for manufacturing the product, and in that case you know that at any point of time when we are in the manufacturing process, we feel that okay, the quantity which we have kept in the production, which we have kept in the stock is very much low, and again you are planning for issuing an order for purchasing the further units. So the amount of inventory which you have kept in your godown will definitely influence the size of the units, the quantity of the units which you are placing an order to your supplier. Because if you are managing the units only by issuing a single order for the whole financial year, it means you are very much cautious, you are very much careful about the ordering cost, because this bigger is the size of the quantity, the lower is the ordering cost. Otherwise sometimes what happens, if you are placing an order for purchasing the raw material very frequently, maybe twice a year, maybe thrice a year, maybe 4 times a year, in that case definitely it will enhance the ordering cost. But definitely once the ordering costs are being enhanced, it means your carrying cost will come down. Because sometimes what happens, that say for example if I place only a single order of 2000 quantity, then definitely in order to keep these 2000 quantity, I would be requiring huge space.
Carrying
so then
cost,
definitely it will involve the carrying cost. And sometimes what happens, that say for example if you are taking the benefit of price fluctuation in the market. See, sometimes what happens, my forecasting may be wrong. If I forecast that the price are likely to be increased in the market in the time to come, and if I hold more quantity of the raw material, but on the other hand when the time comes the price may go down, so you may have to suffer on account of forecasting, on account of keeping the amount of inventory low, keeping the amount of inventory very high. So that depends upon the circumstances which prevails in the market. So in case if the prices are going up and we are holding the stock very much low, in that case that will definitely meet out the demand of the customer, because the prices are going up, we are keeping the amount of inventory in the adequate quantity, and we are in a position to maintain our cost. But sometimes what happens, if you are keeping the amount of inventory very much high, with this prediction, with this forecast that the price will come down, but eventually the price may go up, in that case definitely the organization will be under huge loss, because the other competitor, they will buy the raw material at lower cost, and on the other hand you have already purchased the material at a higher price.
That will be a problem.
In that case you will have to manage these two things very effectively.
Now that is why there are certain inventory techniques are there which to be used. The most important of them is the economic order quantity. In short, we know it as a EOQ system, in which what we do it, we find out the most optimum quantity which should be ordered each time, so that the total cost, ordering cost plus the carrying cost, should be minimum. The company should be in a position that it should not fall short of the raw material also, and should not have the excess inventory, because every excess inventory, as you have pointed out, holds a very valuable portion of our storehouse. So that will be a cost to our company that can be used like for some other purposes. In EOQ, what we do it, we find out the total annual uses, means how much total annual uses, how much total unit we are supposed to produce, how much raw material we needed. So that will be multiplied with the ordering cost into 2, means the formula will be 2AB divided by C. C is the here carrying cost, A is the annual uses, and B is the ordering cost, and the whole you will take the under root of this. Dear learners, you will understood this by example. If I take, for example, there is a particular unit which has the annual uses of around 3200 units, means 3200 units, and the ordering cost is 150 per order, and carrying cost is 25% is of the cost per unit. Cost per unit is ₹6, which means carrying cost is 1.50 paisa. So if you total it up in formula which I told you, under root 2AB divided by C. So 2 into 3500 into 150 divided by 1.50. If you take the under root of all this, it will come around 800 unit, which is the optimum level of inventory you are holding for your use. And if you are having the 800 units to be used in one order, what does it mean? You will place 4 orders in the year. So it generally after 3 months you are supposed to place an order. Other than this UQ, also you are supposed to fix reorder level. There are the safety margin levels. You will have a danger level, so that at any time there should not be stock, should not be finished. You should having the stock always with the company, and company's production can be continued without problem. Labor should not sit idle, and everything can be done it. So I hope you would have understood what is the inventory management and its techniques related to EOQ, economic order quantity.
So here Mr. Nurag, as you have outrightly discussed about economic order quantity, EOQ. So dear learners, as the name implies, economic order quantity. So it generally refers the size of the quantity which we should place an order at a time to buy the material from the supplier. So it should be managed in such a way, you know, that sometimes economic order quantity, it means the size of quantity which we are going to place an order with the supplier. So the size should be such that it should not be a bigger size, it should not be a lower size. So the size should be such that the sum of carrying cost and ordering cost is minimum. So when we talk in terms of economic order quantity, it refers that the size of order should be such where the sum of your ordering cost and your carrying cost is minimum. So that is your economic order quantity. As I have outrightly discussed that there are certain costs which are associated with the ordering cost, and there are certain costs which are associated with the carrying cost. So when we are placing only a single order, in that case it will minimize your ordering cost, but it will enhance your carrying cost, because in order to store a bigger size of the quantity you need more space. You will have to pay the rent for the godown, you will have to pay the expenses on inspection also, and sometimes the fire may take place. So in case if the fire may take place, then you will be the biggest loser in terms of the quantity, because a big size of the quantity may be under fire, and the price fluctuation equation is again one loss, one cost which is associated with the carrying cost. Today you might have bought the raw material against rupees 20 per unit, but in the time to come the prices of the raw material may come down, so that is again one cost which is associated with your carrying cost. Then change in taste, preferences, demand of the customer, because sometimes what happens that today the taste, demand and the preferences of the customers are getting changed very frequently, because sometimes you know that today if I like to wear jeans, maybe that after a month or two I don't like to wear the jeans. So if I have hold the material which is meant for manufacturing the jeans, that will become outdated, which is directly associated with your carrying cost. So therefore it should be managed effectively, neither it should be high nor it should be low. So this is what we can exactly come to know, what is the exact size of the quantity which we should place in order to the supplier, so that our carrying cost and our ordering cost is minimum. That is what we want to come to know through economic order quantity, EOQ. Yes, thank you.
Now there are some selective inventory control systems. In your books you have done ABC analysis, always best control. Now what it means? It means that you should have the correct mix of the quantities in case of raw material, etc., always in your stock. Means all the goods are divided into the three categories, A, B and C. A category has the most important goods which are the highly used in the organization, and these kind of the goods should be maintained in the stock always and at a priority level. Then there is a B list in which the moderate goods are there, and you are keeping those goods which are not very frequently needed, but they are needed for the better performance and a smooth organizational operational, smooth production process, you need them. Then the C category, the goods which you may not need it for effectively production purpose directly, but you need them for reduce the fatigue cost, etc. So all these goods should be maintained properly. Now in the A category there is a strict control of organizational management should be there. Management should be responsible for holding the A list goods very well. There should not be any shortage, because that is directly linked with the production level. Then the B list, moderate control can be there. You can have a moderate control, means weekly or twice a week you can check those goods and their status, whether they are correctly in stock or not, according to demand or not. Then the C, you can use it once in a month, you can inspect it and you can find it whether you are having a sufficient quantity or not. Then in the today's modern era, there is a new control system have been introduced to you, that is JIT, just in time. I will say it is a zero inventory turnover, because in this you have maintain your supply chain management in such a way that your total cost comes almost negligible, because you do not hold anything in your stock, but you arrange in such a way your supply from your suppliers that everything in exact quantity you can get at right time. In India, first time it is Maruti which has implemented it, and for example they have the JBM group of companies which supplies them the raw material in case of silencer, etc. Asai India which supplies them the glass, etc. in the company premises itself. In this, companies adjust their plant layout, etc. in such a way that everything can be procured at right time and the cost can be minimized at that level itself. And it is really helping this auto industry, and Maruti and Bajaj was really able to cut down their cost by this, and which means they have increased their profit margin due to just-in-time approach.
So here Mr. Anurag, one more thing which I would like to tell to my dear learners, that as you have outrightly discussed the second unit ABC, that is always better control, and the third one is JIT, just in time. which plays a vital role in managing the inventory very much effectively. So when we talk in terms of JIT, just in time, as you have outrightly discussed, that it is basically a zero inventory. So when in fact sometimes when we feel that yes, everything will be supplied at right time, in that case definitely we can assure that there should be a zero inventory. But sometimes, because all the suppliers, all the organizations are not in a position to forecast and to get the supply of the material, or the organizations which are the suppliers, they may not be in a position to supply the right quantity at a right time. So then definitely there are very few organizations in India which are following the practice of just in time. Though there is no doubt, once the organization is in a position to manage JIT, just in time, it means zero inventory, nothing like that, because it reduces the cost of the product to the minimum extent, which you may have an advantage to your competitors in the market. And the second one, so far as ABC, that is always better control, is concerned. So here in fact, dear learners, what we do under this technique is that we divide the components of the raw material into three categories: A, B and C. So in category A, we bifurcate those components of the material which are very less in quantity and which are having more values. It means which are most valuable to the organizations but which are very less in number. Say for example, if the quantity of the components of the raw material may be 10 to 15%, but these 10 to 15% components may carry 75 to 85% of the total values of those components of the raw material. So these are the most valuable components of the material for the organization, where the maximum focus, where the maximum attention is required. So in case if the organization is not in a position to control these components of the material effectively, then there will be a blunder on the part of the organization and the cost cannot be compete in the market with the competitor's product, and ultimately we will be under huge loss. On the other hand, category C components of the raw material which are very big in number and which have very less values. So these are the components. These components may be in quantity around 75 to 80%, and these components may carry only 10 to 15% values. So when these components are of very less significance, in that case it is better, it is always advisable to the organization to pay least attention on these components, because these are very large in number and having very less values. So when these are very large in number, then definitely in order to have a better control in large number of quantity, the organization will have to focus more, spend more time, more financial resources. So therefore better it is that the organization must focus on those components of the material which are very less in number, where very less amount of time is required, where very less financial resources are required, and which carries the maximum values. So which is the most advisable to the organization. Then the last category is B category, moderate components of the raw material, which are maybe around 25 to 30% in quantity and which may have the same amount of values. So these are the components where the company, where the organization must pay moderate attention. These components of the material cannot be ignored, but so far as the C category components of the raw materials are concerned, where the company is supposed to pay the least attention because of very large in quantity and having very less values. So it is always advisable to the company that company must focus maximum attention to the category A product, which are very less in number. Say for example, if being a teacher, we sometimes deliver a lecture to the student. So in case if you know that the number of students are very much less, in that case when we feel that there are few students out of those total number of students who are very much intelligent, we always prefer that we should always put our sincere efforts, we should always come forward to help those students who can really bring the laurel for the organization.
That's correct.
Otherwise, you know that in case if you are putting your whole attention equally to the whole class, in that case sometimes what happens that the students who have made up their mind not to study or who have made up their mind to create the problem, then your whole efforts may go vain. So that is where the company is supposed to pay, you know, attention as per the values and as per the quantity of the material.
Generally, list A will have around 80% of the raw material value, and the list B will have the 15% of the value, and the list C will have the 5% of the total value, as Dr. Sunil has pointed out. So obviously a list A has to be taken care of more. You should take more care of this. Other than these two techniques, there are a few more techniques which are being applied by the business organization today in India. We will be discussing in some other session. So however, I would like to name them. Vital, essential, desirable, and BED analysis.
Mr. Anurag, I would like to interrupt you because you know that we are running shortage of time. So dear learners, as the topic for this today's teleconferencing was inventory management, which is of great significance, and Mr. Anurag has discussed it so meticulously in a very comprehensive and in the most simplified manner, because today's the management of inventory has lot of importance, because until or unless we manage our inventory effectively, these are the costs which are directly associated to the total cost of the product, which attributes the directly cost to the total cost of the product. So when we are not in a position to manage the direct cost, in fact, because this is the direct cost, and once the direct cost is not being managed effectively, in that case the cost effectiveness cannot be achieved by the organization, and once the cost effectiveness is not being achieved, in that case the very purpose of the organization will automatically defeat it. So dear learners, it was all about for today's teleconferencing session, and I do hope that this teleconferencing session might have gained you a very good experience. You might have learned a lot, and in case if you have any queries, you are welcome to ask. Okay, thank you, Anurag.
Thank you, Sunil sir.